Welcome back to another episode of WGC Fits. I'm here with Ian Hardesty and myself, Trent Maxwell. We're going to talk about spin today. So Ian, had some questions about spin.
Yes, what's the, for my swing speed and attack angle and delivery, what's the best optimal spin?
So optimal spin, a lot of people when they go to spin, the spin dynamic side of things is going to, they hear what people think they need low spin when it comes to drivers. They don't really talk so much about irons, but irons are going to, the low spin debate comes out with irons. As I strengthen the loft, the spin's going to go down. So as I have spin, the more loft I have, the more spin I have. The more spin I have, usually the more control I have as well, as long as I don't excessively spin it. I might start getting ballooning situations. So to answer your question as far as the optimal go, it's going to depend on the player type, and it's also going to depend on what you're trying to achieve. But I would say having more spin gives you more control. Having less spin gives you more distance, but less control.
See, my understanding was low spin gives it less likely to go this way. But it's actually the more spin you put on it, not more, but the more backspin and less side spin you can put on it.
Correct.
So that's something I didn't know before.
Correct. So if we're comparing, say, an MB that's a muscle back that's spinning at 8,000 RPMs versus a game improvement iron that's spinning at 5,600, I mean, there's big differences there.
Yeah.
The heights didn't change a whole lot, but the spin certainly did.
Yes.
So a game improvement iron is designed to hit it higher, and it's designed to go far. That's great, but I also lose a little bit of control when that happens. People talk about forgiveness. It's forgiving from a standpoint of if I hit it on the heel and the toe and the low on the face and high on the face, it's going to retain its ball speed, but it's also going to spin a whole lot less. As it spins less, I just have less control. Think of a knuckleball pitcher. When he's throwing that, he has zero control of where the ball's going. He's just hoping they don't hit it,
Yeah.
type of thing. Versus someone that's throwing, a Greg Maddux of yesteryear that threw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, but it was pinpoint control, and he could throw it basically on command and throw it so hitters couldn't hit it, even though it was not going as fast as some pitchers, but he knew exactly where to place it so to strike people out or to get people out, more importantly. But he had ultimate control over that ball.
Which
Same
is kind
thing.
of what whole spin, the more spin you have, the
Correct.
more control. But if you get too much, it's almost losing distance.
Correct.
So it's kind of finding a middle.
It's finding that middle ground, that middle tier of what is too much and what's not enough. Speaking from someone like me that's a very low spin guy, for the first time in my life, I'm okay with having spin. Why? Because I know that gives me so much more control. My bad shots are better because they're spinning enough to stay in the air. Having control over the golf ball is giving me a certain amount of confidence because now I know exactly how far to hit distance-wise.
Yes.
I can make that swing and I know that it's going this far and it's going this far every time. It's not going to go, I'm not going to hit it really solid that all of a sudden it's going 15 yards further. I wouldn't consider myself an excellent player, but I consider myself a decent player. And as a decent player, I want to have control over those yardages. So if I make a good shot, I will get a good result. That's what's important to me. Some people, it's more about distance. So they're going to have to give up a little bit of that control, and it's going to spin less, but it's going to go farther. If that's what they're looking for, then that's game improvement, or some of those iron types. That's what they're accomplishing. Player distance looks like it's in between game improvement and players club. Player distance is designed to look more like a players club, but perform a little bit more like a game improvement club. So you're trying to take the benefits of both and trying to stick it in one package. So it's just kind of a breakdown in different things.
A problem I had was when I had a practice round for the Mid-Am is I had this 160-yard shot out of the rough. And I hit my 160 club, and it caught like a groove or two high, and it went 190.
It took off.
It went 190.
Yes.
It's just not good.
Yes.
So it's to a point where I'm almost thinking like maybe getting something with a little less tech, just get a cavity back or muscle back, just so I can control those flyers and takeoffs
Yes.
more often.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see it a whole lot more so than the average player.
Yes.
The average player that's swinging a 7-iron at 75 miles an hour versus you swinging a 7-iron at 105 miles an hour. Spin for you is a good thing.
Yes.
Because that gives you control. If it was knuckling, I mean, you could hit, I know you didn't do it today, but you could hit a game improvement iron, you might hit a 7-iron 240.
Yeah.
And think nothing of it because it's just going to go high and knuckle and just go forever. Well, that's kind of hard to play.
Yes, very
or
hard
plan
to play.
for when I don't know how far it's going to go. Versus if I know my 7-iron's only going to go 170, and maybe you're going to have some flyer situations, but it shouldn't go 20 and 30 yards farther. Maybe it goes 10 yards farther. Well, now you're still in the green. You're not.
Or just chipping.
Or just chipping.
Not
you're
hitting a big flop shot from
Correct.
30 yards away.
Correct. So I guess to go back to the original question, the optimization, it's a player by player basis. And you got to figure out, the hard part's figuring out what's best for you and what best for you and your needs and your situations.
So I know the Tour Pro average is 70, 200-ish for a 7-iron, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's it
Yeah,
for like
roughly.
the guy that's swinging 70 to 80? What's the spin rate for that?
Theirs are typically lower because they're chasing distance a little bit more.
Yes.
So they're probably in the 55 range, 5,500
Which is
range.
optimal.
To chase distance, yes.
Okay.
So if you're looking at TrackMan optimal versus flight optimal, there's two different things.
Okay.
TrackMan's always going to venture on the side of distance oriented.
Yeah.
What's optimal based on distance. I want what's optimal based on control. If I'm hitting an iron, when I'm hitting a driver, maybe it's a little different story. But when I'm hitting an iron, I really want to base it based on control. Your spin's going to be a little higher, but you're going to have a little bit more control with it. People don't slice irons per se. They slice drivers, but they don't slice irons. They might cut irons, and they might excessively cut irons, but they're usually not going too far offline.
I've done that before.
The average person, anyway. So having a little bit more spin isn't really a detriment, other than the fact that it will go shorter.
The only problem is it balloons.
Might balloon, so
short part, yeah.
you might need a little bit more golf club.
Yeah.
Again,
Especially
it's part
into
of
the wind.
part of the learning process. But if that's my trade-off, I'm going to have, as I've said before, especially with irons, there's always a trade-off. So you're going to have to give up something. What's more important? The fact that it's not going to balloon in the wind, or the fact that I have more control over the majority of my shots?
I like the second one.
So having control over the majority of the shots, I mean, it depends. I mean, I guess if you're playing in the British Open and it's going to be really windy and you're going to have a lot of shots where it's blowing at 30 miles an hour and I really have to concentrate on ballooning shots, then maybe my iron set needs to be a little bit different. But if it's only blowing 10 to 15 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, and having ultimate control over the ball, I mean, having spins not a bad thing.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Or you take, the situation is you take extra. I'm kind of chuckling because one of the golf pros that I first worked for, one of his comments, and I've read it many a time since then. But when it's breezy, swing easy. So take an extra golf club and then just swing a little easier, and that'll cut off some of that spin, and it'll lower the flight a little bit, and it'll kind of shoot through that wind a little bit more.
That's what I learned to do.
Yeah,
Just
I
right
mean,
here.
sometimes you can do it by technique. Sometimes you just do it by doing some different things with club headwise. I mean, I used to do it where if it got windier, I actually tried to swing harder. Because when I would swing harder with less loft, it would not spin as much, and it would actually, I could cut it kind of through the wind even more.
Hit it over the wind?
I'd
do that.
I'd hit low knuckleballs that wouldn't spin.
There you go.
Now I've had to relearn how to do that because now I have something that's got spin. So now I just take an extra golf club or maybe 2 extra golf clubs and just try to hit it normal, or try to hit it a little easier. just trying to make a good golf swing. And it'll stay on line a little bit better. In regards to spin, I mean, it's something you definitely, I would talk to your fitter about. And as you're going through the fitting process, I mean, ask the questions. It's important.
Very
You don't want a too little spin. I know hitting off a mat can be, or we have two different types of turf in here. I know that spin can be a little bit harder to discern off of a mat than off of grass, but you are trying to do apples to apples. So if you kind of know what your golf club does and what you expect out of your golf club, you're just trying to compare it. That's all we try to do here. So hopefully that answers the question.
It did.
This concludes another episode of WGC Fits. Don't forget to like us and favorite us. And please visit our website for more information.